You didn't break anything dramatic. You didn't say anything cruel. You didn't have some massive argument that shook the walls of your home. And yet somehow, the person you love most in this world feels farther away from you than they did a year ago. You can feel it. That quiet distance, that invisible wall. And the terrifying part is you can't quite put your finger on what built it. That feeling you're carrying right now, that low hum of disconnection that sits in your chest when you're sitting right next to them but somehow feel completely alone, that's not your imagination. That's real. And what's causing it is something so ordinary, so woven into everyday life, that most people never even question it. In fact, most people defend it. They protect it. They bring it to bed with them every single night. We're going to get into exactly what that is in just a moment. But first, I need you to understand something that took researchers studying thousands of couples and families years to finally prove. Emotional connection doesn't usually break in one catastrophic moment. It erodes, slowly, quietly, one evening at a time. And before I go deeper into this, I want to tell you that if you're already sensing something is off in your closest relationships, if you've been feeling a kind of emotional numbness at home that you can't explain, there is a program linked in the description below this video. I won't spend a lot of time on it right now because the information I'm about to share matters more in this moment. But people who have gone through what this program offers describe their relationships before it as living in the same house but on different planets. I'd encourage you to at least look at it today, because that window of availability doesn't stay open forever. If you're the kind of person who thinks they don't need it, that's usually the person it helps the most. Now let me paint you a picture. It's evening. The day is done. Two people who genuinely love each other are finally in the same room. One of them is on the couch scrolling through a phone. The other one is doing the same from a different chair. Maybe the television is on in the background. Maybe there's the occasional comment about something funny online. They laugh for a second, and then they go back to their separate digital worlds. From the outside it looks peaceful, comfortable even. But something deeply important is not happening in that room. And that something is the quiet, consistent, face-to-face, soul-level attention that the human nervous system is wired to need in order to feel loved. Here's what science tells us, and this is where it gets uncomfortable. The average person now spends between 4 and 6 hours per day on their phone. Not for work, just scrolling, just consuming. And when researchers at major universities began tracking what happened to relationship satisfaction in households where screen time was high in the evenings, the results were alarming. Couples reported feeling emotionally invisible to each other. They described a creeping loneliness that didn't make sense because they were technically together all the time. One person in a relationship described it this way. They said it felt like being hungry in a room full of food that was always just slightly out of reach. That is what emotional starvation from within a relationship feels like. And you might recognize that feeling right now. Here's the part that makes this habit so insidious. Your brain doesn't register the scroll as disconnection. It feels like rest. It feels like you deserve this after a hard day. And you do deserve rest. That's not the issue. The issue is that your partner's nervous system is sitting right there, quietly registering the absence of your attention as a signal. And that signal, received night after night, week after week, begins to translate into something devastating. It begins to translate into the subconscious belief that they are not a priority to you. They won't always say it. Most people don't. They'll get quieter. They'll stop trying to start conversations because they've been interrupted by a screen enough times that their nervous system learned to stop reaching. They'll begin to feel like sharing their inner world with you is pointless. And slowly, the version of themselves that used to come to you with excitement and vulnerability and need begins to retreat somewhere you can't follow. And here's what breaks my heart about this pattern. The person on the phone isn't trying to push anyone away. They're exhausted, they're overstimulated. They're using the one tool that modern life has handed all of us as the default method of decompression. This isn't about blame, this is about awareness. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And once you understand what's actually being lost, the cost becomes impossible to ignore. Let's talk about that cost. Because I want you to feel it, not just understand it intellectually. Think about the last real conversation you had with the person you love. A real one. Not logistics about groceries or schedules or whose turn it is to handle something. A real conversation where you looked at each other and you talked about something that actually mattered. Something vulnerable. Something that made you feel close. When was that? If you're struggling to remember, that's data. That's important information about the state of your emotional connection. And the research on this is stark. Couples who do not have regular, emotionally meaningful conversations report significantly lower levels of relationship satisfaction. They are statistically more likely to grow apart. And the saddest finding of all is that most of them don't realize it's happening until the distance has become so wide that crossing it feels impossible. But here's what the research also shows. And this is where I need you to really pay attention, because this is the turn. This is where hope lives. The couples who interrupt this pattern, who make a deliberate, consistent shift in how they spend even 30 minutes of their evening time, report changes that most of them describe as nothing short of miraculous. Within weeks of putting phones down and genuinely being present with each other, couples reported feeling more emotionally safe, more attracted to each other, more willing to be vulnerable, and more satisfied with their relationship than they had felt in years, some of them in a decade. That's not a small thing. That is everything. When your partner feels truly seen by you, something biological actually happens. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone that creates the feeling of deep attachment and love, releases in both of your systems. You begin to rebuild neural pathways associated with safety and closeness. The walls that quietly went up over months of digital distraction begin, brick by brick, to come down. And what returns is something you might have started to believe was just gone forever. Intimacy, real intimacy. Not just physical, but emotional. The kind where you know someone all the way down. Children in homes where parents are emotionally connected to each other and genuinely present also show measurable differences in emotional regulation, anxiety levels, and their own ability to form healthy attachments later in life. Which means this isn't just about your relationship with your partner. This ripples outward. This shapes the emotional blueprint of an entire family. And I know that right now you might be thinking, this sounds good, but I don't even know where to start. The habit feels too automatic. The phone is always just there. My partner and I have drifted, and I'm not sure they'd even want to try. That's exactly where I want to challenge something in you right now. The people who experience the most profound transformations in their emotional relationships are almost never the ones who felt ready. They're the ones who were honest enough with themselves to admit that something had to change. The people who felt least equipped, who thought their situation was too far gone, who almost didn't try, those are often the ones who report the most remarkable results. Because the decision itself, the act of genuinely choosing to show up differently, communicates something to the people you love that words alone never could. You don't have to be perfect at this. You don't have to have it figured out. What you have to have is the willingness to be uncomfortable for the sake of something that matters more than a feed full of content you won't remember tomorrow. Think about 5 years from now. Picture 2 versions of your home. In one version, nothing changed. The screen stayed on every evening. The quiet distance continued to grow. The conversation stayed surface level. The intimacy continued to fade. The children, if you have them, absorbed that emotional atmosphere. Your partner learned to stop reaching for you. And you woke up one day and the gap had become a canyon. In the other version, something shifted. You recognized the cost of the daily habit. You chose differently. Not once, but consistently. You put the phone down and you looked at the person sitting across from you and you said, without words, you are more important than anything on this screen. And they felt it, and slowly they came back. And so did you. And the home you built together became something you could actually feel when you walked through the door. That version is not a fantasy. That version is a choice that is available to you right now, in this moment, in this season of your life. The research is clear. The emotional cost of chronic screen distraction in relationships is not minor. It is cumulative, compounding, and if left unaddressed, it can quietly dismantle the most important bonds in your life without a single dramatic event to mark the moment it happened. You deserve a home that feels warm. You deserve a relationship where you feel truly known. The people you love deserve a version of you that is actually present with them, not just physically in the room, but emotionally available, attentive, and engaged. If you are ready to stop leaving that to chance, the program linked in the description below this video exists precisely for this moment in your life. For people who know something needs to change and are finally ready to do something about it. Don't let another evening pass the way the last 100 evenings passed. The version of your relationship you actually want is closer than you think. But it starts with a decision made today, not someday. Today,